Well, friends, Judge Ho says no. No to an immediate, untested dismissal by Donald Trump's Department of Justice of Mayor Eric Adams' public corruption case. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, we've been talking about what clearly looks like a corrupt dismissal of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' criminal prosecution in federal court in New York. You'll recall one of Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorneys, now a high DOJ official, Emil Bove, filed a motion to dismiss Adams' case, not because the evidence was weak, not because they couldn't win a conviction, but because the Trump administration wanted Adams to be in a position to help Donald Trump with his political priorities, like immigration. Well, Judge Dale Ho is the presiding judge. He held a hearing, and he just issued an order. And it's a good one. Let's start with the new reporting. This from the Washington Post. Headline: Judge appoints outside lawyer to argue against dropping Adams' charges. And that article begins, the federal judge overseeing the corruption case against New York Mayor Eric Adams appointed an outside lawyer Friday to present arguments in opposition to the Justice Department's efforts to dismiss the charges. U.S. District Judge Dale Ho declined a request from top leadership at the department to immediately close the case. Instead, he appointed Paul Clement, U.S. Solicitor General under President George W. Bush, to advise the court on the matter. Judge Ho noted that there has been no adversarial testing of the government's push to abandon the Adams prosecution, a controversial move that prompted the resignation of at least 8 federal prosecutors, including Danielle Sassoon, the former acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. I will add, an acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York that the Trump administration had put in place. The article continues, quote, normally, courts are aided in their decision-making through the system of adversarial testing, which can be particularly helpful in cases presenting unusual fact patterns or in cases of great public importance, the judge wrote. At a hearing in Manhattan earlier this week, Emil Bove, the acting deputy attorney general, urged that the judge had little authority to oppose the government's request. Ho acknowledged that fact, and his order appointing Clement to review the matter Friday came as something of a surprise. But it was not without precedent. When Justice Department officials tried to drop their case against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn during President Donald Trump's first term, a federal judge in Washington appointed an outside lawyer to ensure traditional prosecutorial interests were being represented in the proceedings. Can I pause here for a quick editorial addition, friends? What Judge Ho is getting at is he's saying, usually the prosecutors and the defendant who's been indicted by a grand jury for serious alleged public corruption crimes, usually they're on opposite teams. But here, you've got Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, now a DOJ official, joining in on the same team with the indicted defendant, Mayor Adams. They're all holding hands, they're singing Kumbaya, and the Department of Justice is saying, let Mayor Adams go because Donald Trump wants him to help with some of his political priorities, like immigration. Feels kind of wrong, kind of corrupt, even a little bribery-ish when a prosecutor uses his official position to extract a thing of value for himself or his boss, a thing of political value. Let's finish up the article. Bove said in court papers and at Wednesday's court proceeding that the decision to abandon Adams' case was appropriate and in line with the policies laid out by Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi. The case interfered with the president's immigration and public safety priorities, which required significant assistance from Adams, Bove said. Friends, I won't read the rest of the article, but let's finish with this remarkable statement that Bove made in court. Quote, "Frankly, I think the fact that Mayor Adams is sitting to my left right now is part of the problem," Bove said in court Wednesday. Quote, "He's not able to be out running the city and campaigning." Friends, think about that statement and let me translate it. This is Bove essentially arguing that elected officials can't be criminal defendants. I mean, they have work to do. Mayor Adams has to be out there running the city, and he has to be out there campaigning. This is Bove essentially arguing that politicians can't be held accountable for their crimes. They're busy people, and they're important people. To that I say, effing wow. Let's take a quick look at Judge Dale Ho's new court order in the case. In the case of United States of America versus Eric Adams, defendant, Judge Ho wrote, "On February 19, 2025, the court held a conference, a hearing, on the government's motion to dismiss the indictment in this matter. Normally, courts are aided in their decision-making through our system of adversarial testing, which can be particularly helpful in cases presenting unusual fact patterns or in cases of great public importance. Our legal system assumes that adversarial testing will ultimately advance the public interest in truth and fairness." What Judge Ho is getting at there is usually there are two teams, the prosecution and the defense, in criminal cases, in criminal trials. Here, the two teams have joined forces, and we need some dang adversarial testing. Somebody has to represent the people's interest here. Yes, that's my interpretation of what Judge Ho is saying in his order, and the order continues. "In particular, the unique strength of our system of criminal justice is that it is premised on the belief that truth is best discovered by powerful statements on both sides of the equation. The proper administration of the criminal law cannot be left merely to the stipulation of parties. There has been no adversarial testing of the government's position generally or the form of its requested relief specifically. Accordingly, to assist with its decision-making via an adversarial process, the court exercises its inherent authority to appoint Paul Clement as amicus curiae to present arguments on the government's motion to dismiss." And friends, amicus curiae is essentially friend of the court, someone that the court hears from that is not one of the two parties in the case. And Judge Ho's order concludes, "It is hereby ordered that the parties and Paul Clement, amicus curiae, will address things like the legal standard for a motion to dismiss, what other materials should be considered as part of the motion to dismiss. If the motion to dismiss is granted, should it be with or without prejudice? If the motion to dismiss were denied, what practical consequences would follow?" Put a pin in that one, friends. "And any other issues the parties or the amicus believe are relevant to resolution of this issue. And friends, we'll be talking more about this in the coming days. For example, what happens if Judge Ho denies the motion to dismiss Eric Adams' criminal case? Who prosecutes it? Where do the prosecutors come from? Because the Department of Justice is siding with Eric Adams now. They have no interest in holding him accountable for his crimes. So what happens if Judge Ho says, nope, I'm not dismissing the case. It's not in the public interest. It's not righteous. We'll be tackling that question in the future. But today, let's finish with this. At least Paul Clement, the amicus curiae, the friend of the court, will, in a very real sense, be representing the interests of the American people. And why is that necessary? Well, because usually in criminal cases, you got two teams, Team A and Team B. Team A are the federal prosecutors, who are usually trying to hold criminal politicians accountable for their crimes, and Team B is the allegedly criminal politician. But you don't have two teams here. You don't have opponents. You don't have an adversarial process. Why not? Well, because Emil Bove has gotten up off his bench, if we can use a sporting event as a vehicle. If this were a football game, Bove got up off his bench, walked across the football field, and sat down shoulder to shoulder with the alleged criminal, the person who stands indicted for multiple serious public corruption crimes. He is now over on Team Adams, or if this were a basketball game, the same thing. He gets up off his bench and he goes and sits down on Adams' bench. If it were pickleball, yeah, old people like to play pickleball, it would be like Bove walked around the net and he's now standing there with his paddle right next to Adams, and there's nobody on the other side of the net representing the interests of the American people. Our interests are unrepresented. So, but for Judge Ho's order, we the people would be out in the cold, unrepresented, nobody on our team. But Judge Ho remedied that by appointing Paul Clement, because Judge Ho knows that justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.